So we're going to go ahead and get started today. This is the last session in a continuing series through Extension and Engagement on all things food. We hope that you enjoyed the previous session in February that was called Universities Exchange, Growing More Than Community Gardens. Our session today is called Food and Culture, Seasoning the Traditions of Our Cultures. Food is the great unifier that connects us across cultures and generations. And our food culture is the way that food integrates into our traditions. Food is often used as a means of retaining the flavors of our cultural identity. It is our hope that today you will walk away understanding what we just said in that statement. In our session today, we have a panel of individuals that are going to discuss what this means to them. So to start off, let me introduce myself. I am Jeremiah Terrell. I'm a field specialist in human development and family science with the University of Missouri Extension, and I am housed in Shelby County. Next, our moderator, go ahead and wave, Gerardo, is Gerardo Martinez. He is the Director of Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion for Alianzas, a statewide program at UMKC's Institute for Human Development. Alianzas is a joint project with the University of Missouri Extension. For our panel, we have Estrella Carmona. She is a field specialist in nutrition and health with MU Extension. She is housed in St. Genevieve County. We also have Manoj Chetri. He is not with us yet. We're hoping it's because of technical difficulties and he'll get on soon. But he is a field specialist in horticulture with MU Extension, and he's housed in Daviess County. We also have Christina Heilman. She is a grants manager at the University of Missouri Kansas City Institute for Human Development. We have Candace Rodman. She is a field specialist in nutrition and health with MU Extension, and she is housed in Randolph County. And we have Alberto Villamondos. He is Associate Professor of Spanish at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. At the conclusion of our panel discussion, we will give 15 minutes for questions. So please hold questions until that point so that the panelists can have focus on their discussion and we can have those questions at the end. Without any further ado, I'm ready to hand it off to you, Gerardo.
Well, thank you, Jeremiah. That's a beautiful introduction, and I'm so excited about this topic. So, and I think Alison Copland knew very well that I love food and I love cultures. So, we all know like what food is and what culture is, but what is food culture? So this is defined as the beliefs, the attitudes, and the practices related to producing and consuming food. Food culture incorporates our ethnicity and cultural heritage and provides a mechanism of communication with others and within our own families and communities. So I'm really excited to get to know each one of the panelists, that they have different backgrounds. And so with that, I'm going to start with the first question. So what is your family's cultural heritage, would you say, Estrella?
Well, my family's cultural heritage is Mexican. We are from Mexico. I'm a first-generation immigrant. So that is my culture, and that is one that a lot of us are most familiar with, I believe, in America, given that we do share a border.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Estrella. Christina, what about you?
Hi, I'm a second-generation immigrant. My mother was from Athens, Greece, and my dad was from a small village next to Haskovo, Bulgaria. And they came to the United States in the mid-1950s and opened restaurants and had 3 kids. So we've been in Kansas City since then.
Beautiful. Well, I didn't know that you have also the Bulgarian side. I knew about Greeks, but no Bulgarian.
But I know more about the Greek side.
That's great. Thank you. Candace?
Hi, everyone. I am from good old Arkansas, right? So I will be talking a little bit about that Southern perspective and the history of Southern America and the food and culture from down there, because as much as Missourians want to argue with me, it is vastly different. So we'll talk
Right.
about that.
So what about your parents, grandparents? Would they grow up here also, United States?
All from the South, all from Arkansas, from the South, as far as I know.
That totally sounds the soul, right?
That's
Awesome.
right.
Great, awesome. Thank you, Alberto.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I was born and raised in Spain. Also, my mom is from Portugal, so I have experienced that culture as well. And I came to the US and to Kansas City 17 years ago.
Okay, I didn't know also that you had a Portuguese side. Interesting. I was there probably about 2 months ago in a side of Andalusia, and I had a fortune to really taste the beautiful flavors that Spain has that are quite different from Mexico, also where I grew up, Siem Estrella. But I was growing up in the north side of Mexico. So, and speaking about that, so I don't know if any of you have ever experienced like the aromas and the smell of something really yummy and delicious that instantly it brought you back to your childhood, back in that time. So have any of you have experienced that? And where did you grow up? So where did you grow up, and what food do you remember during your childhood, Estrella? What food did you grow up with?
Well, even though I was raised in America, because I lived in such a tight-knit community, I grew up in migrant housing. So my family and all the families around me were very true to who they were as immigrants, and their culture is very strong. So I was fortunate enough to get to live that experience in America. And there are so many foods that I could name, but I would say the one food that I find to bring back those memories when it's cooking, that smell, the taste, the flavors, is a sauce called mole. And it is so good, and it's so hard to explain because it's not spicy, but they use chili peppers in it for the base. It's kind of sweet, and they have all kinds of spices. They include chocolate, nuts, and seeds.
Chocolate? Wow.
It's a dark color, and it's a very difficult type of flavor to explain, but it's excellent.
It's delicious. So how do you spell it again? The name of it? Mole?
Okay. It's spelled Mole.
Mole.
Mole? No, mole.
Mole. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's just one of the best foods I can remember, and I still have it.
You still have
So I
it?
get to have good memories, and I still get to experience it now.
That's great. Well, I remember that having some of that once in a while in my home, but in the north of Mexico, again, it was something not as popular, but I did try it, and it was excellent. I mean, I really love it. Put it it's like a sauce, isn't it? And you put it on the top of the rice or meat, like with chicken, and it's really good. I would love to try it again. So maybe I'll go to visit you, Estrella, one of these days.
I'll have to call my mom. I'll have to invite my mom over. I did not inherit those skills, but I do appreciate going over for a visit and having that food ready for me.
Okay, awesome. So Christina, what about you? What kind of food did you grow up with?
Well, I was raised in the Kansas City area. 75% of the year I live in Kansas City, and the other 25 during the summer months, my parents would take turns and take the kids to Greece. So I have 3 months in Greece and 9 months in Kansas City. And then we were raised with the same foods that we eat in Greece here because my mother was the cook of the house, and she was a wonderful cook. A lot of the Greek dishes are called ladara, which means in oil. There's a lot of vegetables with tomato component, whether, the winter might be a tomato paste, and in the summer it's fresh tomatoes. And you have a lot of olive oil and these fresh vegetables. I have pictures if we have time later to show you. We also grew up with a lot of egg lemon dishes, which is lots of lemon and an egg sauce, and with vegetables. Again, we were, as you hear about the Mediterranean diet these days, we basically ate like that. Lots of fresh fish, vegetables, fruit,
Right.
lots of olive oil. There was always bread on the table and always a Greek salad of some sort. So, those traditional dishes like the oil-based dishes and the moussaka, which is layers of eggplant with ground beef and a bechamel sauce, or pasticho, which is kind of like a Greek lasagna. All those, whenever I smell them, wherever I go in America, it just transports me back to the days when I'm in Greece. And, it's just,
It's
the food is amazing and so much tastier, I think, in many ways, than making the same food here.
Yeah, I can imagine. So when first time when I moved to, I finished college in Monterrey, Mexico, and then I had the opportunity to go to Toronto, Canada, and I lived there for almost 10 years. It was my first time ever try something from your country. And I remember that we were debating about how to pronounce the bread. Is it gyros or gyros?
The sandwich is gyros. Yeah. Gyros means
gyros?
Round, gyros, yeah.
Also.
Gyros in itself, the word means round. So since they put the meat on a vertical spit and they cut it and it turns round and round, that's why it's called a gyros. And it has, in America, you could get it with ground beef or ground beef and lamb usually. In Greece, they don't usually have beef. It's usually a pork, sliced pork off the spit, or chicken. The pork is the most popular, and then they put the tzatziki and the tomatoes and onions and paprika on it. It's
interesting.
So flavorful.
Well, today it was an aha moment for me. Now that you're talking about the name of the sandwich. So in Spanish, giro, but a giro is something that is going around and around and around.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of words that are similar between Spanish and Greek too, like
the Latin and the Greek, I guess, has some there. But interesting. This is just today. I just learned it. Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you, Candice. What about you? I want to learn about the South and the soul of it.
Yeah. So when I think about the culture of food where I grew up in a very, very rural area of Arkansas, very poor area. And so food was fuel, bottom line. It was not extravagant. It was not very fancy. Maybe if it was a holiday, we grew our own food. So we had a garden, which we ate semi-healthy because we had tons of vegetables that we grew. There's a long growing season in Arkansas. Oh. But meat-wise, it was ground beef, which we had neighbors who had cattle, which is handy for us. So neighbors meaning a few miles away. And so we would, get some beef from them. If we purchased meat, it was pork because pork is cheap. And so we were definitely a very food is fuel family. Nothing extravagant at all. And so I find that different now that I've moved to Missouri and I live in the city, I live in Columbia, so I have access all the time to anything that I want. And, I'm more money in my household than when growing up. And so it's definitely changed. But when growing up, socioeconomic status is very low and food was not treated as something fancy. We need it to survive. So you get what's cheap, you grow what you can. So you don't have to buy it. Buying things was kind of a hassle to drive pretty far to a grocery store. So when we did, it was necessities.
So what do you think? I mean, I have heard always from outsiders that the people in America or the United States is pretty individualistic. Mm-hmm. So did you grow up in a household where you guys were kind of united and so your extended family? You've been in Here,
My extended family was several hours away. So I'm also an only child. So I have a very tiny, tiny family. It was my parents and I until they were divorced, right? And then it was one or the other and I. And so very small family. However, my dad's side was large. He was the youngest of 10 kids. So when you think about when he thinks or thought about food and culture, it was very different because he was also from, very, very poor family. They grew everything, but they were feeding 10 children. And so
wow.
food was scarce. You grew and farmed as much as you could because, again, the grocery store was an hour away. They would go once a month to the grocery store for flour and sugar, things that you don't make at home. And so there wasn't a downtown where you can, I don't feel like cooking tonight. I'm going to go run to the grocery or run to the store, eat out, nothing like that.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a survival type thing for us.
Right. Well, beautiful. It's interesting. Again, people have different perceptions, about decisions, and they always see the hamburger and the French fries, and that's it. But there is much more than that, So what about you? Thank you, Candice. What about you, Alberto? Tell me about the food that you grew up with when you were little.
Yeah. So well, there was an issue because my mom, I assume your family as well, she's a great cook. She has worked as a cook. She's very proud of her cooking skills.
Okay.
So it's hard to pick one thing. And also it's hard for me to mimic her skills. Like now when I'm trying to do something that I liked, that she made, it's like, wow, this is not the same. I need to step it up. This is not working. So I'm really trying really hard. But yeah, one thing that she really masters, it's really delicious, is croquetas. Croquetas is, it looks like a hush puppy. So it has that structure. So it's deep fried. Outside is breaded and deep fried, but inside has a bechamel. Bechamel is a type of sauce that is made of flour, butter, salt, and it's very creamy. So you have to butter it, you have to stir it like for a long time. It has a technique to it, so it doesn't, it's very smooth. And then you can add to that maybe some dices of ham, or maybe chicken, or maybe cheese. So you can customize
different things. Okay.
Yeah. And so they're, they're not very big, and they're kind of longish type of, but they're very creamy inside. You have to eat them when they're still warm, and it's just amazing. It just melts in your mouth, and it's really an experience. So she is great at that. I have to give it to her. She's great at those, making those croquetas. For me also, even though I didn't grow up in the South, but I really got accustomed to the flavors of the South, which are very mild compared to U.S. cuisine or Mexican cuisine in terms of spices. Is more like about letting the fresh ingredients kind of show their inner flavor, let's say. So apart from maybe basil, oregano, maybe those are the spices used, but something that really brings back not just memories, but brings me back to the country is when I, in the morning when I want to have a breakfast, like a typical Southern breakfast, and then you toast the piece of bread, like the type, baguette type, and then you add some olive oil to that. Then you smash a little bit of tomato. So you get a half a tomato, you kind of grind it, and then you put the fresh paste on top. And if you are feeling especially extravagant that day, you add a slice of Serrano ham. The Serrano ham is this type of, you have to picture the leg of the pork that has been salted for months. So it can last for a long time, and, you can slice it and use it for so many things. So that's also fuel, like Candice was saying, that ham is fuel to me, but also the mix of the sweetness of the olive oil, the freshness of the tomato, and the the salt of the ham is a great combination that goes very well with a coffee. I mean, it's a strange combination, but for breakfast it works.
Well, and if you're growing up, that way with the coffee, it's in your parents, yeah, it's normal. Yeah. But for me, yeah, no, it's like a coffee, like, no, I would not put that with it, Okay. It's just fascinating how each of us remember those moments and you remember when you also smell those dishes here today where we are in the state of Missouri. So who cooked the meals in your home? You're talking about your mom, Alberto, but in my home, my mom did not like cooking whatsoever. So my dad was the one who was really doing most of it. And I really love his cooking, and it was pretty broad as well. But yeah, my mom not. So anybody else, everybody's mom was the one cooking the most?
My mom cooked the most. Actually, she cooked it all. But in my home now, currently, I do very little cooking, and my husband does most of the cooking. So it's already shifted just from one generation to the next.
Interesting. Anyone else different?
No, my mother did the cooking too, in the house and in the restaurants because they had restaurants. My dad was the entertainment. And it was passed down from my grandmother. She was a wonderful cook. So was my mom. And I enjoy cooking, and I'm passing it down to my daughters and sons too, but mostly daughters. The sons don't care very much about cooking.
And I think it's beautiful what you're saying, Christina, that we pass it to the next generation. I mean, it's part of who you are. Yeah. It's part of your culture, and it's something that you want to keep. In my house today, now my wife she's Irish descendant. We met in Toronto. She's from Columbus, Ohio area, and so she didn't know what guacamole was. She didn't know that you can put some lime juice in your chips, in your bag of potato chips. That's something I brought from Mexico. She loves that. The flour tortillas, the corn tortillas. So I make all that at home. And my kids grew up with that, and it's something that I want them to preserve, even though all of them grew up here and were born in the United States. It's something that I do really take so much pride. And so, I was telling my friends that I cannot live without nopalitos. So nopales is pretty much, I have this at home. So these are cactus, right? So we call them nopales. So I have this at home, and this type is spineless, like it doesn't have any thorns. I got this from Texas, by the way. And then, so there is a store here called Torito. It's a Mexican store. And so I buy the pads. So that's the pad. These will have thorns. So I had to scratch them and get them off. And then with that, I make something that I grew up with. This is like a beautiful, refreshing salad. So it has avocado, tomato, onions, cilantro, a little bit of salt and pepper. And of course, the nopales. So we call nopales. And it's very nutritional, very refreshing. And so I have not been eating it yet. And you guys are talking about food. So I'm super starving now. So, the things that you guys are talking about is really brings to all of us, it really brings social bonding. Food is the center of social bonding and also feelings of well-being. And they help us to feel part of a community. So whatever it might be. So when we have traveled to other countries, and you try their food, somehow you feel like just a little bit part of their culture by eating that. So, and cultural traditions are very important. So how did you like and what traditional dishes were shared during your holidays with your family? Something like a candies you were saying is something like special holidays. But Estrella, do you remember any particular holiday and what did you guys cook?
Oh, it was always tamales.
Tamales?
It was always tamales. Yep, Christmas and always tamales. Or any special day like that.
Did you guys make it at home, or you went and buy them?
No, we homemade, always homemade.
Homemade, okay.
Yeah. And of course, there's sweet tamales, and then there's the ones with the sauce and the meat that are not sweet. So one was a dessert and one was the main meal.
Okay. So thank you. Yeah, I love tamales, but again, they may be a little bit different. Like I know that in Mexico, they use corn husks, while in the south of the border, Mexico, like Salvador, Guatemala, they use the banana leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings a very different texture and flavor to it. So it's pretty neat. What about you, Christina?
Very different, yes.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, thank you.
Most main holidays like Easter, for us, Easter is a big holiday. We always have a lamb. My mother used to roast leg of lamb with potatoes. I make lamb chops because I like that cut better with potatoes. But in Greece, they have whole lambs that they do on a horizontal spit, the whole lamb, and they cook it like over 20 hours, slowly outside. But lamb is it's everywhere. You could get lamb anytime in Greece, everywhere. But we used to have it on special occasions for sure, like Easter, Christmas, and other main holidays.
Was it because it's a little more expensive, or
lambs?
Additional.
There's a lot of lamb in Greece. There's not very much cow. They don't raise cows as much. There is cows, but not lamb is just the main meat that they enjoy, and pork. Lamb and pork are the two main meats they like to eat in Greece, and that's how my mother, I guess, grew up. And lamb's expensive, so
Very
maybe
different.
that's why we only have it a couple times a year for sure for those holidays.
Yeah.
Because especially here, it's more expensive in the States.
And I never tried lamb till I moved to Toronto. Really. Even though we do have some lamb in Mexico, it's not common at all.
Yeah.
We have in Monterrey, we have baby goats. So and we're known by that. We call them cabritos. So it's the baby goat, and it was delicious. But lamb, never tried. It's a very different texture. Now I love it.
Yes, and goat is a main meat in Greece too. It's the healthy white meat kind of. They say because it's supposed to be real good for you, especially in broths and soups. It's real good for elder people to eat.
Right. Good to know. So thank you. Candace, what about you? So did you had any something during the holidays that you had, something that you remember?
Yeah, and we would generally have the traditional food that everyone, at least in the US, associates with holidays, the turkeys, the hams, the things like that. I think we would also add quite a bit of, Thanksgiving, Christmas time is right after deer season. So we would always have deer meat as part of normal meals, and especially around the holidays. We have, when we're all getting together, the whole family, the whole big family, there's a lot of people. So we also pull, a bag of catfish out of the deep freeze, and we're going to fry catfish on Christmas and things like that. So just in order to feed the masses, we're just kind of pulling a lot of things from everybody brings a little bit of something. I didn't answer the last question, but my mom was not the person that did the cooking in my household. My dad and generally the men in the family would always prepare the meat because honestly, the women didn't want to clean fish. If you've ever cleaned a fish before, it's not a fun process. And so the men usually caught the fish, cleaned the fish. That was supper, right? And then, my mom would help with getting veggies together and things like that, making mashed potatoes. So definitely different in my household, but holidays were just kind of a mix of whoever can bring something from their deep freeze, to be honest.
Interesting, Candace. Thank you. I grew up with hardly any fish because, again, we're in the inland and in the north of Mexico. And so fish was once in a while. And so I didn't know that women would not do the fishes. So interesting.
It's just not a fun process to prep a fish fillet or anything from crappie or something. So
You'd imagine. So thank you. And Alberto? What about your holidays?
Yeah, so it has some commonalities with Greece because Spain is not a turkey country. I mean, maybe now people have, eat more turkey, but like the special, holidays food used to be lamb. There's also people eat a lot of fish. So cod is very popular. And, from the Atlantic, and it used to be cod, like in upper north Atlantic Ocean. And it, back in the days, it used to take a long time to go back to the coast. So they had to put it in salt. So they cut the pieces of cod, put it in salt to make it last. And then, so when you buy the cod, you have to put it in water during a process. Maybe I think it's 24 hours. You have to change the water so to remove the salt, and then you cook it with peppers, tomato. You make a very rich sauce, and you can cook it in different ways. But cod is very popular even in inland in Spain. So there's always people had always a lot of fish. Something that is related to Easter is a dessert called torrija, which is a little similar to French toast, in the sense that is you take, let's say, a baguette, from the day before, the one is already kind of soft, and you cut it in slices, and you put it in warm milk with cinnamon, and then you deep fry it. So it's or another recipe used the wine instead of milk. So it's an interesting twist, a French toast made with wine, and don't have too many of those. But so it's kind of sweet. It's a dessert for Easter. Mm-hmm.
And it's the same name, torrija, for
torrija, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whether it's milk or wine.
Yeah.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Same. Okay, interesting. So so talking about that, like on the food around the world, somehow is influenced by several factors, such as the climate, the economy, the landscape. So for this reason, they can vary even within a single country. So Estrella, again, what part of Mexico were your parents from?
We're from Central Mexico.
Central Mexico, okay.
Very in the middle. If you think of the middle of Mexico, not south, not north, not east, not west, right in the center.
Right in the heart.
So that's where I'm from. Mountainous, beautiful scenery all over, pleasant weather. It's not too hot, not too cold.
Okay. So is there anything like a regional, can you tell if there is any food that was very regional, unique, where you grew up different from other parts of Mexico?
I would say garbanzos were very unique it was just a snack. You would just eat
garbanzo.
The garbanzos. They were steamed. And we put hot sauce and squeeze lime juice on it. Did you ever have garbanzos like that, Gerardo?
Yeah, I had, but not really in Monterrey. No, I mean I have had them now, but they didn't grow up that much there in the north of Mexico. As a matter of fact, I mean I was used to eat always pinto beans in the north of Mexico, and then my parents went for a trip, and we went all for vacation, and we went to the south of Mexico, and I remember being in this restaurant, and I was probably like 7 years old, and so we had like a milanesa, French fries, and beans and all that. And the beans were completely black. I never seen black beans. So I screamed and I yelled and I said, "The beans are burned, the beans are burned." And so my parents started laughing, but I've never seen black beans in my life, because in the north, it's always pinto beans. So, and that is, again, it's kind of regional. where it has some differences. And so, Christina, what about you? Have anything that grow up different from the rest of Greece?
Yeah, my mother was from the southeastern part of Greece. And then we also lived a little bit during the times we were there, that I was there, the south part of Greece. And we've been in some other areas, regions, but in general, what I remember from when I was younger, as well as currently, everything basically is similar. I mean, there might be more of a certain spice or a different spice in certain thing, but they still tend to eat the same dishes. Closer to the ocean, you'll have more seafood options. Even though Greece is small, you're close to the ocean regardless, but more inland, they have more of the meat dishes and non-seafood dishes if you're in the middle of the land, But otherwise, I don't remember much difference. I mean, whole fish was served, instead of fillets. I know when Alberto was talking about the cod, we have the salted cod as well, and we do it's called sari plaki. Plaki means with tomato sauce and onions and peppers baked. But you could find those almost everywhere in Greece. So again, I haven't been to all regions, so I don't know further.
Right, what the difference would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, no, definitely like in the north of Mexico also, we only have like flour tortillas. So in the rest of Mexico, it was always corn. So it was hard for me because I love flour tortillas. And as a matter of fact, well, here's my little basket here. Like, this is like something that you hold your tortillas. And all I didn't have a chance to make today was just the dough. So tonight I'm going to have my flour tortillas. And so again, my wife doesn't make them, so I had to make them. So anyhow, and those are wheat. That's why it's a little bit brown. So Candace, I mean, I don't know, enlighten my mind. What would be different from me if I go to where you grew up and eating in the United States is kind of, if I go to Texas and I go to Kansas, I don't know how different.
I wouldn't say Texas and Kansas are the same thing. But definitely, like I said, a lot of food that we hunted and killed ourselves. So there's, I don't know that everybody does that all over the US. But we ate a lot of deer meat, a lot of rabbit meat, even squirrel. I know. And definitely some other things that my parents would lie to me and tell me it was a pork chopper, and I would just eat it and find out it was raccoon or something later. Definitely traumatized by that. But I think moreover, the difference would be maybe the preparation as well. Just like the stereotype of everything in Arkansas is fried. It kind of is. We fry a lot of everything. And I was looking up the reasons for that, maybe the origins behind the fried food. And I found a couple of resources that said two different things. So one thing is the origins lie within slavery. Okay, so it was cheaper to fry up food. All you need is oil, some sort of flour or something, and heat. So if you don't necessarily have a full kitchen, or you're not allowed to have a full kitchen, you don't have a stove or an oven, things like that, then frying food was the option, right? So, and it kind of stuck around in the southern area after slavery. Another option I've heard, and I'm not sure I believe it, but the South is a very hot climate, right? So our summers are always in the 100 degrees the whole time, very humid, and turning on an oven in the middle of summer to bake your food or whatever you're going to have is a little inconvenient. It's hot, right? So frying is something that won't heat the house up, basically, when you're frying. So, I'm not really sure which is the most true. Maybe it's a combination of both, but I think the preparation of food it kind of sets us apart from maybe the rest of the country and how we get our food. I'm certain there's not a lot of hunters out in California or anything. So that's what I would say originally. Yeah,
and definitely, like we were talking before, the way that you grew up, was kind of a stitch, like really, very humble way of growing up in so many kids. So in my home was kind of like similar. And I do remember we had like a goat head and seeing my dad cooking it, just boiling it. And then out of that head, I mean, we see literally the whole head coming out of that pot, steaming. And then he will just make dishes out of the eyes, out of the nose, out of the cheek, everything, the brain also. And let me tell you, everything that he was making out of those organs, whatever from the head, it was amazing, amazingly delicious. Today, ask me if I'm going to do that. No, there's no way. so definitely, the economy in your home might be very different diet compared to someone who is kind of rich. I'm sure they will never eat a boiled goat head and get it all apart. and I remember just putting the brain, smash it, add these spices, and then put it in a tortilla, in a cold tortilla, and it was so delicious. Estrella, did you ever try the blood? Did your parents ever made anything with the blood?
Yes.
With the sauce?
So
You too?
did I try it? No, I didn't. But was it prepared and was it consumed in the household I grew up in? Yes, it was.
Yeah, I feel like I would not do that at all. No, but it was so good. It was so delicious. I don't know.
Now as an adult, I think I would give it a try to experience it. But as a child, I mean, kids are picky eaters, and I wasn't that picky, but there was that limit that I had as a child.
I hope that maybe an MU extension will do something like a completely international cooking or day or something, and then all of us different specialists bring their own cultural dishes and share and tell stories about them, whatever. So Christina, yes, go ahead, Christina.
I was going to say, you reminded me talking about the goat head. In Greece, that's actually a delicatessen to serve someone a roasted lamb's head. I remember my uncle one time went to Greece, who married my aunt, which was Greek. He wasn't Greek. Went and they got married there, and they put him at the head of the table and served him, put the head, a lamb head in front of him. He stood up, walked around, and sat somewhere else but it was amazing. I've had it when I was younger. I've had it now. I don't think I want to eat it, but I'm kind of opposite in Australia. And that I tried it when I was young. And it was good. The brains supposed to have lots of protein, and they're very good, and the tongue and everything on the cheekbones. But I don't think I'd eat it today because I feel bad.
You're not just so tender seeing the poor little animal. So thank you. So Alberto, what about you?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about how the newer generations don't really know where food comes from. And it's true that, as little kids, we can be picky, but everything has been so cleaned up. Everything is so packaged. So you don't really know, what's the, that pork chop comes from a real pig, and, the chicken breast that, you have people eating like it comes from an animal that was alive. And I think it's good to know those things and to see them alive and kind of, okay, this is, I guess, we eat all these kind of things because, you have to get used to that idea, I think. I mean, so on both sides of my family, they come from the countryside. They used to raise their own animals. And my grandma, I mean, she had pigs, and they had to slaughter them, and it was a whole festival. Everybody was participating. The neighbors were there, and it was traumatic to me, seeing that, hearing the sound of a pig being killed, the images, like it was way too much for me. But then, I mean, you have to think, the chorizo and the ham, and it's all delicious. So, I mean, there's a price you have to pay. But it was interesting because, I mean, when you are asking about local things, I mean, I think that tradition of getting together and all the family participating in, everybody had a different task. They would use everything out of that that pork. I mean, the fat would become soap. Like everything would be used. The bones. It was like a whole store. Like you would get
Yeah.
out of that. And so it's something that younger people haven't. Most likely they haven't experienced, but I think it's good to know where things come from and
Yeah.
an opinion about that. Maybe you want to stop eating because of that, but I think you have to be aware of that. But also, now that you guys were mentioning, the blood and this and that, I used to kind of hate that, like those, kind of the leftovers of the animal, the beef and the pork. And now I found a new, I don't know, like new interest for that now with some distance. Now I see that it can be a delicacy, pork feet, pork ears, things like, it was like, and now because it's rare here, or, I don't see it so often, or brains, or, when I go back, I try, I really look for it. It's like, okay, I need to, experience this and appreciate it now with more distance. I think, what saying, adding to what Candice was saying about animals, I think Disney has done such a damage, because we think of animals like little, like human creatures. And come on, there's a saying in Spanish that says, anything that runs or fly goes to the cooking pot. So,
Well, I see something so again interesting in speaking about all these kind of dishes that we grew up eating. Again, just the fact that we have a family and we have our extended family, it made it so beautiful in different ways to each of us. That is somehow connecting us. Being an immigrant, being in the United States, is somehow those memories and those flavors and those smells keeps connecting us to where we came from. Suddenly when I pass through a restaurant, suddenly the smell brings me back memories. Like you were saying, Christina, where I grew up. And with that, it's like, what do I do today now that I'm an immigrant in the United States? Like, what can I do to continue, having those kind of traditions, keeping them alive as much as I can. Again, my wife being completely different culture, she shared her things, I share my things, and my hope is that the next generation, my children, will carry on some of those things, So each of us, we even bring our own recipes, so maybe could be about a dessert, and it could be about a main dish, etc. So each of us, we bring our food customs and the recipes, and so there is sometimes, to me anyways, it helps me to deal sometimes with the homesickness, and my hope is that to pass it to the next culture. But I did not experience that here in the United States. I did experience that when I went to Toronto. I went through what is called a cultural shock. And one of the things, again, it wasn't just not the language and the climate, but also was the food. Back then, late in the 90s, I was not having access to much of the Latino typical, food. And so I went through a cultural shock, and I was getting kind of depressed. I just never experienced what depression was, but seriously, I was for like almost 2 weeks. I was just totally blew down, and I just wanted to go back to Mexico again. I said, I'm done. I don't want to learn the English language. I don't want to know anything about Canadians. I just want to go back home and let's say have my tamales, have my tacos, have my enchiladas. One of the things I experienced, I remember, was also the first time in my life there in Canada. I tried this corn, and it was also sweet. Like somebody put some sugar on it. Like, what is this? Like, I never tried in Mexico sweet corn. It was always salty and so yummy, and so that was something also like, why is this so different? So, did you remember of anything, or have you make some adaptation to your recipes to be able to cope sometimes with that nostalgia or with the homesickness? I don't know if you have any of you experienced that, and what changes have you made today to cope with that? Estrella?
I just make everything spicy. I really like heat with my food, and I choose the spiciest option anywhere I go. The hottest hot sauce they have, that's what I go for.
Really?
That's what I'm used to eating is spicy food, and there is plenty of spicy options out there. And I would say that's how I keep myself connected to those flavors that I enjoy, and it's by choosing the spicier options on the menu.
Okay, well, good for you. I don't like to
Not hot. I like to sweat. I really do.
I think, wow. Well, I do admire you because I am not going to do that. Like, wow.
Mhm. I do want to comment on something that Alberto said earlier about the pig squealing. Look, when you said that, it instantly took me back to hearing that, because like you said, in our family, we brought the animal. It was there for a little bit, but it was meant to be eaten later. And it was usually for a special event. It was, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking of my quinceañera. My family came over. They helped prepare the pig. You know, they did what they needed to do. And they spent the whole morning together enjoying each other's presence. And everyone had their task and their job. And it actually, although unpleasant, is a very pleasant memory.
You bet. Wow, I can imagine. So what is a quinceañera, Estrella? Just perhaps some people may not know. I don't know.
It's a celebration of a girl turning 15 years old. And that it just kind of represents this girl that is now a young lady.
Oh, okay.
And that's really just all. There's a lot of meaning behind it. You know, there's a church service for most of the quinceañeras. So it's a very special moment, not just for the girl, but for the family.
Is it like a sweet 16?
It's like a sweet 16, yes.
Okay.
But a sweet 16 doesn't come with church service, but a quinceañera does. So there's just a little bit more depth to it as far as culture and tradition.
Yeah, I heard that people like go crazy in trying to make it super special. They have godfathers and the people help with it's almost like a wedding.
It is to the extent and the level of a wedding.
Did you have a quinceañera?
I did. And it's absolutely one of the best memories of my life.
Really? Wow. What color was your dress? Don't you guys supposed to have a special dress color?
Okay. So it used to be very traditional that it was pink. A pink quinceañera dress was very traditional. And me being me, I was like, no, I'm doing something different. And I chose a blue dress.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, I'm glad that you had that experience. Here, me growing, being in the United States, my daughters did not have a quinceañera party. So we did a sweet 16, and more because my wife and then the daughters, so she knows better. And so we didn't have quinceañera, although I did get them a special present to each of them. And I explained to them what quinceañera was. And so, of course, they love the idea of having something on 15 and then something on the 16 years old. So
yeah, and it goes back to having that tight-knit community that we just were very fortunate to be around, that migrant community that we landed in when we came to America.
Right. So question for everybody. Do you think the food today is it healthier than the one that you grew up with? Is it better in the way of the nutrients that it has, especially for those that are in the health and nutrition? Candace?
Yeah, I can tackle that for a second. It depends. I would say, from where I grew up, absolutely things are healthier, but I think it may be because there's more access for me now, right? So growing up in Arkansas, like I said, it was an hour to get to a grocery store. I don't think I ate an avocado until after undergraduate, after college. Embarrassingly, probably didn't know what it was until then, much less had that. So the access has changed for me. I live in a city now, and so everything is at my disposal within a minute or 5-minute drive. I think that goes for most of America. We have access to things now that we didn't before. There's more restaurants, there's more options. And now I can probably culturally find any food here in the US that I'm craving at the time, whether that's Asian food or Mexican food. It may not be as authentic as it should be, but it's available to us. So there is that. But health-wise, I think the increased access nowadays, even if you do live in the rural parts of Arkansas, say, we have online ordering now. So, you can order food online and get it shipped to your home. So we do have the opportunity to eat healthier. Do we eat healthier? I don't know.
So depends, eh?
Yeah, that's individualized, right? Because I definitely will not turn down fried okra if I find it on a menu in Missouri. I won't turn it down. So, but it's rare. So I enjoy it when I can. But so just because we have access to more healthy foods doesn't necessarily mean we're eating them. But I definitely think that has shifted since I've grown up and moving around the US for sure.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else? You think the food is healthier nowadays than it was before? I agree with Candice about having access to easier or more readily. Christina, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it depends. I mean, if you're thinking of the home cooking at home, I think we've always had access to healthy foods. It just depends if you choose to make them.
Okay.
But yes, there's more access to different cultures' foods and the online ordering. So yes, it makes it easier. So it makes it easier to get something that if you made at home, you may have made it healthier. But if you buy it out, you don't know what they put in it and how many calories are in it or how much fat. So I think the options it gives us could make it less healthy. But again, it depends if you're buying from the grocery store, and it depends on how you were raised and what type of foods and choices you make in your cooking.
Yeah. Well, I go to Aldi's, right? And Aldi's have this section that is all refrigerated, and they have all these amazing already made dishes. All you have to do is just put them in the microwave or put them in the oven, and ta-da! So you have your food there. So
we do have, yeah.
Will you think that will be as healthier as healthiest making it in your place?
It depends. I mean, because they have those salads too. They have the prepackaged salads, and it depends what you buy. I mean, again, it depends how you were raised to eat. If you were raised to eat more whole foods and less fat, less frying and stuff. It just depends.
And again, we go back again to, it's just the way that we grew up, right? So my dad was making all the food, and those are my memories and all the things that I want to preserve. But for somebody who didn't have that, so it might be easy for them to just go and grab something quick and eat that. It looks good, the ingredients are fine, and that's it, So what about you, Alberto? Do you tend to, what are your thoughts anyways?
Well, we tend to cook at home as much as possible because I think, when you have control over that, how much sodium are you using, how much sugar are you using. I mean, it makes a difference. And I think you have options out there. I think if I'm thinking about the students, I think they're very aware of what foods are healthy, but currently, the price of food is a challenge for many people. So you may have the healthy food, the healthier option, but then it's such a temptation, or it's so easy to eat less healthy food because it's going to be cheaper, and so my worry is that healthy food is becoming also like a status symbol, like people who cannot afford it, can say, I buy this healthy food, but it should be something widespread. Like, it should be affordable. It should be like what farmers market used to be. It was just a market. People would sell their stuff, the stuff they raise, and now it's become fancy. It's almost a fancy thing to do. I think fruit, vegetables don't taste the same. I think, they used to, I don't know. You can tell the difference when it's homegrown, or, when it's your own orchard, it has a completely different taste. I mean, I think there's awareness, but also there's big challenges, like Candice just mentioned in the chat. There's food deserts, and not so. I'm in the city as well. In the city, whole areas where the only option for food is not healthy.
Yeah. And so you had to adapt the best to your abilities, right? So yeah, and me growing up, I remember. So we live right in the heart of Monterrey, and Monterrey is full of factories and business going on, hustle and bustle, really busy city. And nevertheless, in the block that I live, one corner was the tortilla maker people. In another corner was the butcher. Behind the block, it was a bakery. And the other side was even a theater. So because, popcorn, as me, so it was pretty nice. And then, so we have, and the fruits and vegetables were like 3 blocks away from my home. So everything was there, ready to go and buy. But we didn't have a home garden like some of you had that. Now we do. Now at home, I live in Independence. We have a couple acres. And so now we have chickens. We're growing up tomato, onions, a little bit of peppers, Estrella, not that many, just for the flavor. But, but those are the things that I didn't grow up with. But I'm so grateful that, because this is what happened. So I moved to Missouri, and then I was hired by a Latino-based organization in Kansas City. And then they asked me to teach about health and wellness. I love that, but I was not an expert. So who do I call? MU Extension. So I went and I became gardener, what is it called? License? No, it's not license. It's just,
Master gardener.
Yes, master. I didn't want to say the word because I'm not a master still. So master gardeners, I took that class. And then after that, I took the eating from the garden. And then, so we had a grant, and I was teaching the kids eating from the garden. And then suddenly I remember falling in love with having my own garden at home. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try it. So now we do have that. And I'm glad that my wife is very supportive of that. So, but again, that also influences so much how healthier or not healthier you might be eating, because that's something, again, we were exposed maybe at a young age, or you becoming, like you were saying, Alberto, more aware, more conscientious. I never in my life read food labels till I got my master garden thing, and then also eating from the garden, I started reading labels. And so I hope that I'm making better choices now. So what would be one of your advices, Candice, since you're in the health and nutrition, like what would you recommend to all of us, our viewers, in, I don't know, I know convenience is something because time. We're always rushing and running, and we are, I will say, quote unquote, killing the opportunity to really mingle with friends and family and have a relaxed, laid back meal together.
Yeah, first of all, I would say do as I say, not as I do. I may not be the best example. But yeah, in general, less of that convenience food, skip the fast food. And like Alberto said, eat at home, eat when you can, eat at home when you can. Because you'll 99% you're going to eat healthier when you eat at home. And you get the nice things like you're talking about, Gerardo, like spending time with your family and talking and and being around each other is very important instead of eating a burger in the car on the way to the next meeting. So, and it's nice, it's a bonding experience to cook together and things like that. So just kind of trying to do that when you can. Fresh is best, eat fresh, try and grow your own stuff. If you don't do it like Gerardo, the master gardener over here, it is fun. Container gardening is easy and accessible for a lot of people. Try it out, things like that. So, you're looking at that tomato growing every single day on your back deck or something. It's getting bigger and bigger and you're more proud of it. And then you're more likely to eat your fresh garden food because you did it yourself and you're proud of it, and you're going to eat healthy that way too. So.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, I want to invite everybody to look into MU Sembrador. Juan Cabrera, Estrella is part of it. And so they're going to be launching some other classes coming up soon. And, it's always good to learn different perspectives. And I appreciate Extension that gives, this community programming. And more, people are really starting their own home garden. I see that happening more. For me also, organic, that was never in my vocabulary. Never heard that, organic. But I hope that when I do my own home gardening is the best organic can be. So is everybody here, would you consider yourself an immigrant to the United States? How many of you consider yourself? So 4 of us, Candace. so having that in our background, to what degree have you embraced also the Western culture? What have you embraced or adapt now living in where you are in the state of Missouri? Have you noticed any adaptations or changes you have made from where you came from? Estrella, have you noticed any changes you had to make to adapt?
I don't think it was a choice. I think more so you're forced to change. You're forced to change the way you go about your life because you're not in that country. Even though I have a very strong and tight-knit community, and there's lots of people from Mexico that I regularly interact with, I'm still in America, and I still have to adapt to what's available at the local Walmart where most of my grocery shopping is done. And then I also have to adapt to my son's taste. And he did not inherit my desire to eat spicy food. He likes things that are very simple, unseasoned. I don't know how that happened. I am Mexican. His father is from Thailand. We both eat very seasoned foods, but he does not. And so that has forced me to change a lot of what we eat on a regular basis. Not that we don't eat the food that we enjoy when we can. But yeah, I mean, we're just not in our home country, and are forced to adapt to what we live in.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your perspective on that. And yeah, think of the next generation that, they also are asking for some changes. They are exposed in the school, they're exposed to other families, and yeah, definitely it's changing the way they see or feel about food that is, probably too important for you, very important to you. What about you, Christina?
Since I was born here and lived here most of the time, I don't think for me, I had to adapt much, but looking at my mother, she just cooked Greek food all the time. And I cook, well, I'm not saying I cook good other nationality food, but, Mexican, Thai, Italian, everything. And one day I was making, I think it was enchiladas when my mother was alive, and I was making this food, and she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "It's Mexican food." She goes, "What's She goes, what's that? You're not Mexican. I said, no, but I love eating other foods. She goes, no, you're Greek. You're supposed to cook Greek food. So I guess I've changed from what she was in that I cook different foods. So my daughter may know Greek, but she'll also, as time goes by and if she has kids or my other kids have kids, it will change. It'll adapt. It won't be the same as our first generation parents that came here, by then, who knows what they'll be cooking, if they'll even cook our food unless we pass it down. So
right.
that's
Well, and again, it's a way again to continue preserving our identity, our culture in some ways. And I hope that this doesn't fade away in the heart of each of us. There are those memories, those sweet moments with our parents and our extended family, our grandparents, whether during the holidays or a quinceañera or any other holiday or birthday celebration, to preserve those dear memories and the food that was tied to that particular event. And it's something I strive to do. So according to CNN and other websites, they say that the food that is more popular and more likable around the world, I'm going to say that is the Italian food. And then the top 5, so it's France, Greece, Spain, and Mexico, by the way. So, these are things that sometimes makes us to feel good about it, and we share with others. But it's also, I hope that also each of us, as we now in the United States, we also respect the beauty and the delicious things that also America has to offer. Candice, you were making reference about, well, now I'm in the United States, in this case that I'm immigrant, is America or our states offer so much kind of different food cultures that in Mexico I didn't have at all. So, and that's something that I'm very appreciative. And I hope that we as professionals with the University of Missouri system, that we can be a voice of to others about the food is so important and that it really boosts our social togetherness and the gathering moments. So we have 15 minutes left. And so I would like to give this time to anybody who may have a question or a comment, if there is any. Jeremiah, can you tell us if anybody has any comments or questions? This was a very laid back session. It's supposed to be kind of like a little bit of emotions and feelings into our food. And so, Jeremiah, has any questions or comments, or we can continue on?
I am watching. No questions have come in yet, Gerardo, but I'm watching and I'll let you know when I see some.
Okay, thank you. So
I'll make Gerardo, if I can, I'll make a quick comment. When you mentioned the generational change and how we eat and what we eat and things like that, I was thinking about that for myself, and I'm not sure. There are still things I enjoy from my childhood, right? But I think mostly what I would gain from what my parents did food-wise was provide. And they did it in a way that they could with very little money. And so when I think back on that, I'm just like extremely grateful. Now that I'm like, I feel so spoiled. I can go to Gerb's and be home in 5 minutes and grab whatever I want. And I can have Mexican food and I can have all of the things and I can go to restaurants. And every once in a while, I think back to how they made it work and with no money, and they still were able to feed me and I was still healthy and things like that. And so I'm really appreciative of the food and the culture that I grew up around that way. And it makes me very grateful for what I have today, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, Candice, having gratitude for what
I do have a question, Gerardo.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The question is your thoughts on how to revive culture for kids if your parents wanted to skip sharing for fear of bias against immigrants.
Good question. Anybody? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you could start by maybe making dishes from your culture with your kid or with your kids, if you're the parent, and explain the dishes, maybe where it came from, maybe once a month, do it, or once a week, or something like that.
Okay. I like that. Anybody else?
So as I mentioned, my son is a very picky eater, and so sharing with him our culture through food isn't going to work. But something that we do share with him is, where we're from. We talk a lot about our countries. I talk about Mexico a lot. My husband talks about Thailand a lot. Our parents, when they come over, we speak the language. So I think culture, although food is major in our culture, I do think there's other ways that we can find to share with the next generation. And it just may be about knowledge about the country, the history, the people, and the experiences that we've had. Because food and taste it's very specific to children and to adults. So I don't think you can necessarily force that on to the next generation, but you can certainly teach them about it.
Okay.
Through conversations.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this viewer also makes a comment like, but if my parents did not share, I lack the cultural context to share with my kids, for example.
I could say maybe see if there's any festivals or that go on in because I know there's a lot of festivals in the Kansas City area. Maybe one of your culture, maybe you go with your kids and learn together, or you find a lot of stuff on the internet if you want to slowly learn yourself about the culture first before telling your kids.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. I hope that gives a little bit of context or answer to that beautiful comment and question. Yeah, I find that those food festivals have been really great and eye-opener for me, also regarding different dishes and different, for me, more than anything, sometimes it's the name of the dish that I'm not good about it. And I don't want to chop the names of the name of those dishes. Because I was telling Alberto the other day, the only thing I know about Spain food is just tapas. TAPAS, and that's it. So, but yeah, bias is a bigger conversation. It is. So we have all biases, and so how do we navigate that? But whether it's respect to something that we just don't know. So can you tell me about it? Can you teach me about it? Like, like enchiladas. We have enchiladas. We have tamales. We have pupusa. We have so many different names and dishes. And I remember eating nopales, and one of my coworkers saw it, and she goes like, "Ew, what's that?" So, and I go like, "You? No, this is really good. I love this." So, Alberto, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think it's somehow related to how different generations relate to languages, how they pass the language, traditions. Sometimes, people feel a little shame or embarrassment because they don't feel that they kept the culture, or they may feel judged by other immigrants who, either speak the language or kept the culture. So I think, it needs to be an open conversation without judgment, without bias. Teenagers, kids growing up, when they take their lunch boxes, there's even situations of bullying when they are bringing ethnic food, right? So it's a touchy subject, but I think, trying to, navigate that and having conversations, because maybe when you are cooking for your kids, and you are learning those recipes, and you're trying to pass that on to your kids, maybe they will look like they're not interested, but they will be. I mean, eventually, when they go through teenage, they'll appreciate that. I think that happens. That happens with language. That happens with culture. So, it's a conversation. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate also your comments there, Alberto. And Sherry, thank you for giving us that link. I know Jeremiah is also shared with you all a couple of links from UNESCO. So UNESCO had put together a huge list of many different main dishes from probably almost everywhere in the whole world. And that totally opens your understanding. Like I know some of us that we have a chance to go to another country, it will be great to get some understanding or some of the food names before going to that country. And that way we go with more understanding what is in there and with confidence, what am I going to try this time? Oh, I want to try this. I never have done this before. So just to end this session, so what food would you take with you no matter where? Let's say like you have, I don't know, you have like just a few days to live. What would be the food that you certainly want to take with you? What is your like super favorite dish or I don't know, fruit, vegetable, whatever it might be. I know how much I love mangoes. So, and it's not the round mango, it's the one that has like a drop shape of it. It's called Atanulfo, or some people call Manila mango. I love mangoes and I love nopales. So those will be some things that I want to take with me with flour tortillas. Well, that would be kind of strange, right? Mango and flour tortillas, but I love that. So what about you, Estrella? What would be your dish number one that you want to take with you?
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say tacos because tacos can be so many different things, maybe so many different ingredients and so many different flavors. So I'm going to say tacos. Okay. Not any specific one, but just tacos.
Just tacos. So somehow it's part of you who you are, right? So, well, thank you. Candace?
Okay, so I've given this a lot of thought, and it wouldn't be possible at this point because my sweet Granny Faye has passed away, but she used to make persimmon fried pies. I don't know if y'all know what it is. It's dough with a bunch of persimmons in the middle. She cooked it somehow. You flip it over and make like a little pouch, deep fry that thing, and it's delicious. And we had a bunch of persimmon trees that grow wild in Arkansas. And so they're just little tiny fruits. If you've never had one, they have a seed in the middle. The seed will supposedly predict the weather as the winter as well. So really, if you cut open a persimmon seed, it'll tell you if you're going to have snow that year. In Arkansas, it was no snow. Okay. So, but yeah, so persimmon fried pies. That's what I'm taking.
Okay. So, well, I hope that our next meeting with the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Council, you bring some of that so that I can try it. Thank you.
The other so frustrating thing is that my granny never used a recipe in her life. And so there's no written recipe of so it would be a lot of trial and error for me, but I could try.
Okay. I'll be happy with that, Ryan. So thank you. Christina, what about you? What will be something you just bring with you?
We talked about it earlier. I think I would bring a pork gyros. The sandwich, the wrap with the tomatoes, onions, and grease. They put potatoes in it too. So it's like a full meal just in one sandwich.
Wow. Good. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you. Alberto?
It's hard to decide. I think either, if I have to go to a desert island, I may take a serrano ham, and I can last for some months just slicing the ham little by little, boiling the bone, making broth. I don't know. I think I can survive on that. But I really like potato omelette. So it's like a frittata type of thing made of potatoes and eggs You can add onion, green pepper, and it's, it looks like a, I don't know, like a pizza. It's not a pizza, but it's like a pie. Looks like a pie, and
Okay.
it's delicious. So yeah.
I can imagine too. Yes. So Sherry says sushi. So well, my wife loves sushi, by the way. I'm okay with that. But it's it. So final thoughts. Is there anything in your mind, your heart that you want to tell everybody about how there is a saying that well, not a saying, but I read it in a story that you can get to know a culture through their food. And I was like, I don't know. I'm sure it has a lot to do with it, but I think there is much more than just the food, right? But it certainly opens so much about your if you're aware and you put some thought on it, I guess you get to know the culture more through their cuisine. So any final thoughts? Because I know Alberto had to go teach, or he already left. And so any final thoughts? Whether it's identity and your culture, your diet, your food.
Yeah, I think food is very important to learn about another person's culture, but it's not the only thing. It's sitting down with people from that culture and talking to them about their religion, about their rituals, their thoughts and attitudes, and also going to that country where the culture comes from.
It's possible.
I know everybody can't do that, but that helps as well, because then you actually can you could be quiet and just look around and see how people interact, and how in my case, Greek people interact with each other and with tourists and with everybody. So they're very hospitable. Greek people are very hospitable. Every time you go to a house, whether you're a stranger or someone they know, they try to feed you. So, here, you want this, and you're like, no, and they bring it anyway. I mean, they just want to make sure you don't leave without leave hungry or leave, unsatisfied. So
get a little bit immersed in the different cultures, or your friends that are from different cultures. I think it's important, but this is part of who we are, again, our food. And I hope that everybody enjoy some of our conversation, being the last one in the series of the engagement and extension week. And I thank you for everyone that came and visit with us. And I hope that you can take something with you that you learned today. In my home, we never use measurement cups or spoons. Everything was just a palm. And we just knew how much spice it needed. But, I hope that we learn from each other and embrace our cultures, respect each other as well, and just be curious. Ask, let's ask someone, I heard about that you guys have these heroes, so tell me about it. So, well, I thank you to each one of you. I know that you, Candace, and Alberto had to run to teach a class at 2:30. So thank you, Estrella, Cristina, Candace, thank you. And I'm sorry that Manoj was not able to make it, because he, being from Nepal, from India background, could also contribute a lot. I hope he's okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your comments and for expressing gratitude. I see several people expressing gratitude. Thanks again. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and see you around, and let's eat some more anything that is good for us. See you, everyone. Thank you.